offer you this lesson from Unity of the Keys Spiritual Center.
So good morning, everyone. I'm very grateful to be here. And I started off this morning chatting with Gary and sharing that I'm so grateful for this time because it's a space of sacredness for me. You know, I do get to speak in so many places, and oftentimes I do have a plan formulated about what I'm going to say, and I've done it many times, and you know, God's put me in this space to have the courage to stand up and speak. And I recognized when Eileen asked me, Jenny, what's your topic going to be? And I'm like, well, in my own spiritual life, I feel vulnerable enough to share with you when I come up to speak where I'm at. So in that moment, I've been exploring in my life what I find sacred. A teacher had asked me that question and had shared that, and I agreed with her that oftentimes sacredness is not spoke of very often anymore. I don't hear that word very often. I don't hear it on the TV, I don't hear it on the radio, I don't often hear it spoken with the people around me. And how much in my own life, that's where I love to be most, is being on sacred ground, honoring the spaces that we have in our lives and experiencing the sacred. So in that journey, I'm sitting there and having my morning apple, that's why I brought one, and realized and sat with how sacred just this apple can be when I allow myself to take myself on the journey of all the spaces and hands and places that it's been before it even got to me. And how there's so much interconnectedness with the divine. And one of my biggest spiritual journeys is releasing and being in faith, not trying to control everything, not trying to understand everything, not to push everything, but to know there's a time and a space for everything. So I got to thinking, I wonder who planted the seed for this apple. And as most of you know, I have a gratitude practice. So I sat in gratitude. If it was a person, it could have just been nature that planted that seed, but let's say a person planted that seed. And thinking of that seed going deep into the ground. And you know, that seed's coming out of an apple. There's many seeds in this apple. And I didn't know, but I'm not sure if you know, that in an apple, the apple seeds in here, they can create different apples. So just because it's in the same apple doesn't mean it's going to create the same. I found that fascinating. And recognizing that sometimes I feel like that seed in life, that I was in this sweet, juicy place with all my seed friends and family, and somebody took me out of there and pushed me deep into the ground. And it's dark, it's dirty, I don't like it there, I don't understand it there. And there's all these elements around me that are splitting me open, literally. And I'm having to grow in ways I've never grown before. And realizing that there's so much supporting me in that seed, because what's making that seed crack open? What's giving it the nutrients? All of that's there and provided. And, you know, there's certainly spirits involved with the sun and the clouds and the right environment. We know that just because you plant a seed, if it's not the right environment, it's not going to grow. And knowing that I'm not exactly sure it makes a seed crack open, in my mind, that's something sacred that's going through it, and offering it all the abundance that it takes by the time it gets up and it cracks open to the world. And wow, now I feel the sunshine in a different way, and I can feel the rain, and maybe there's someone that's coming, a human that's coming to tend to me as I start to grow. And I realize at that space in life, I usually go, I've made it. And little do I know, there's a lot more on the journey to come for me to produce the fruit of an apple. So in that space, I can allow myself in my own spiritual journey just to say, I don't know what the next step is, but I'm going to enjoy this space of being where I am and not stopping to compare myself to the other trees around me. They might be bigger and they might be stronger. They might have more fruit. They might have more blossoms. But this is where I am on my journey right now. And how beautiful. I don't know if any of you have walked by a flower just getting ready to bloom or a little sapling and been like, not ready for you yet. you're not good enough. You're not worthy. Why would we do that to ourselves, though? I know I've done it, that I'm not where I think I'm supposed to be, but that's not where the sacred has me in this moment. So that sapling, it grows, and it takes a good 5 to 7 years before an apple tree will blossom. And that led me to think again about how many times in my life I've thought I'm supposed to be here by now, I'm supposed to have this by now, I'm supposed to be in this relationship by now, or have this house or live, whatever it might be, that I'm demanding that I'm supposed to have by now. But just like a tree, we have to give ourselves time to grow. We need the right root system if you're going to be healthy and be able to withstand the storms that come. If you're going to have all the nutrients you need to blossom and to bear your fruit, it takes a while. So now that this tree, it's blossoming. And I don't know if you know, but if an apple tree isn't cross-pollinated by the bees, it won't bear the fruit of an apple. So allowing myself to think yet again how much we're so interconnected. If it weren't for those bees, the apple tree might be like, I'm awesome with my flowers, but didn't know that there's another growth coming of bearing fruit that's going to pass and provide so much abundance. And without those bees, without the cross-pollination, and the bees are just doing their thing, right? So I thought about it and I sat in gratitude. And I've been in the past month in gratitude for how many souls have come into my life to give me that little extra element that I need for my growth, to hold me in this space that lets me know I can grow. And those bees are being abundant, right? They're taking care of themselves and their family, their hive, their culture. They're doing so much for us. But that's a whole nother talk about how bees, we need those. But helping that tree and giving it what it needs. And so many people, and it's not just people, by the way. Most of you know my Facebook is filled with my dog. The dogs in my life, the cats in my life, so many things come into my life that offer me great experience and change and growth, even if I don't understand what it's doing. And as that tree finally bears fruit, it bears about 600 apples a year is the average that a tree will be able to offer. And they live up to 80 to 100 years. So you think about how many apples just one tree is providing us. So then I got to thinking about who picked this apple. Little did they know where this apple would go and where it'd be in church with me today talking about how I can find so much interconnectivity and so much sacredness and so much gratitude by learning about the growth of a tree. It very much is similar to my growth in my own life and the gifts it's giving me to release and let go. Okay, maybe I'm back in the dirt again. Maybe I'm waiting for the element of the bee in my life to come give me something else. Maybe I'm just in a time of growth and relax and allow myself to be in that without comparing myself to the oak tree that's next to me or this other one that's blossoming. And I'm exactly right where I'm supposed to be. And all is well. And I'm never, ever going to get to see that whole picture of myself, maybe till the very end. So just allow myself to be with the sacred and enjoy that now. So somebody picked it. So then I got to thinking about, well, that person probably lives in a house. And who built the house? And when you start going into, I started going into, the materials that were gotten from the earth to build the house and the human minds it took to be able to understand how to build a house and the technical skills of others that it took for that person to have a home, and let alone all the furniture in that bed they got to sleep in so they're well rested when they get up to come to go to work to pick this apple. And when you think about, did they have roads? Did they take a car? And now we have to go into who's building the car and all the materials with that, and the entrepreneurs and the people who sell them, and how he got that, or she, whoever's picking the apple, got the car, and who's built the roads and the materials for that. And when you think about who's maintaining them and the ladder they're going to go up and who weaved the bushel they're going to put the apple in, there's so many people, and just getting that person to work to pick this apple And then it's got to be delivered, right? So now we've got other roads and other transportation, and it might be an airplane or it might be a ship. It's all connected that way. And the more you go and think about, even by the time it gets to Key West, somebody had to buy the Publix. Somebody had to be that entrepreneur. They staff people there. Who's maintaining the electricity? Who put in the electricity? Who built the building? Who's maintaining the building? Oh my gosh, how many people this apple is bringing abundance to? Because as it travels, and with other things as well, but this apple's giving so many people abundance so that they can enjoy their lives. Let alone by the time it gets to me and my abundance, that I sit and eat it, and it provides nourishment for my body. So then I went into the thought of the sacredness of my body. And when's the last time you honored the sacredness of these trillion cells that are existing and put together just to create you? They're all there, living just for you. You never really see them. They feel you, they work for you. You can take time to honor them. And here's the thing, that in epigenetics is the science that shows that your thoughts affect the health of your cells. Your thoughts affect the neuroplasticity and the pathways of your brain. We know that your thoughts affect that. And you only know what you tell yourself. So if you're thinking unhealthy thoughts, then we're not as healthy as we could be. You only know what you tell yourself. So recognizing that we have the free will, that if we grew up in a culture that didn't teach us to love ourselves, didn't teach us the value of all of us being interconnected, not just as humans, but as nature, everything's connected. And recognizing that just this one apple brings us all together in some ways. And what else in your life? And I'm sure this apple didn't realize the amount of abundance that it's helping with others. You know, Isaac Newton looked at the apple supposedly, and that helped us with gravity. And knowing that this apple probably doesn't know that it's got antioxidants in it and fiber and vitamin C and all kinds of goodness that is going to help my body, which is organic as well, right? You know, when you hear organic, you're like, oh, it's better. Well, your body's organic, so maybe start thinking of it that way. Because there will come a day when all of this will decompose, just like this apple. If it's not picked, it falls from the tree and provides nutrients to the ground again, or to the animal that discovers it and is able to get nutrients from it that way. And oftentimes I know in my coaching practice, people feel like they're not doing enough. But just like this apple doesn't know what it's doing, and hopefully maybe inspiring you today to look at life a little bit more sacred, you don't know the goodness that you do out there. You could never imagine how far what you've done, or who you are and what you've done, has traveled. I mean, I know part of the reason I love living in Key West is because there are so many people who will be authentically who they are. So recognizing that I can go out and people watch, and I'm sure you've probably seen this at some point, that there'll be people that are in town and maybe they've never been to an island, and all of a sudden there's somebody, they start dancing. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, Bob's dancing. In the 57 years of his life, he's never let go and allowed himself to dance. How beautiful is that? And I love this town. You know, when people say, oh, you can never make a living that way. Well, we have a Darth Vader playing a light-up banjo, and he makes a living that way. We have a guy who trains cats to jump through fire, and everybody knows the cat man if you lived here long enough, right? That something in him was built to be that. You know, there's supposed to be the apple tree, there's supposed to be the oak tree, there's supposed to be the cat man, there's supposed to be the musicians that inspire us, that speak to us through music, that aren't really speaking words, they're speaking life to our heart. It opens us and connects us. You know, if you sit and watch people dancing, they're singing, especially if it's music, and there can be words, but if it's music, all of a sudden we're all connecting through song, with our bodies dancing, with smiling and being, you know. I love when I go out. One of the first times I came to Key West, I was at the Green Parrot, and there was Bob, and Bob seemed to be maybe from the Midwest. That's the Bob, like, oh my gosh, Bob's dancing. And he happened to be dancing with a guy that had his colors on, like a motorcycle gang guy, because it was that time of year that the motorcycles are in town. And just recognizing that this whole group of people was so eclectic, and probably when they go home, they won't like each other again, but in that moment, it was beautiful. And that's why my environment is coming to Key West, and why part of the reason I find it so sacred. So realizing when we go in, and that little bit, I'm sure Bob in the Green Parrot has no idea how much that made my heart happy again. Because sometimes I get caught up in a world where people aren't connecting, where they're not honoring one another. And just to see that sits deep in my heart. I don't even know if his name is Bob, I just make that up. But recognizing as I walk down the street that there is a guy making a living being Darth Vader with the light-up banjo, that makes my heart happy. And how many people stop to tell him that if you feel that way? That there's so much interconnection. It's God's plan that I know that my tiny human mind can never get around. And I hope that when you leave today, you allow yourself the grace to know that you don't have to understand it either. That you're being loved and taken care of, just like that seed has all the elements, even in the darkest part of having to push and break open that seed and get all the way up to become a little sapling. Was always taken care of. Always. And knowing as it's growing and it's changing, even if the winds come and the storms come, still being taken care of. And why I also am really grateful for the teachings of an apple tree. So they're deciduous, meaning that every fall, they lose their leaves. They let go. And how wonderful it is to watch and know the faith. I don't know if apple trees struggle with their faith, but I do sometimes. That I'm just going to let go of all of this and know that new life is coming. And where I get stuck sometimes, knowing I need to let go of that. I need to forgive that. I need to release that. Because when trees or flowers or anything in nature don't let go of what doesn't serve it, it actually helps to destroy it. And we're part of nature. So knowing that as I sat to honor this apple, it allowed me to let go of even deeper of some of the things that I thought were hurting me the most. But then I remembered that those were the times that I was in the dirt, and how beautiful my life is now out of that creation, that I had to be in the hard part. I had to be in the part I don't like. And why is it when I listen to what my mind tells me, do I go back to how it hurt and how I struggled and how challenging it was, and that I was rageful and I grieved, but here I am, growing. And I don't know where my tree is at this point. I don't even know if I've blossomed yet. But I do know I've been divinely taken care of on each and every step of that path. So, when we talk about the keys to being sacred, I hope and offer, if it resonates true to you, that you might take one thing this week and sit with it and recognize how it's interconnected and what it's doing for you and where it's been and how much it's taken to get here, to be where it's at. And when somebody difficult comes along in your life, wondering where they are on that journey. Maybe they're going through that difficult time, so it's not you. They're just angry and they're sad and they're not understanding. I know how many times I don't understand something. Giving that person some grace, because that's the person that gives me that little bit. It's Bob at the Green Parrot. Or sometimes when I'm walking around, there's a lot of happy people in this town. And just seeing their smile makes me go, oh, okay, it's good. We're all right now. So I'm very grateful to be here and to surrender myself to whatever came out of my mouth today, of where I'm at in my journey of faith, in my journey of being connected to all of it with you. And there aren't words that I can come up with in this moment that would honor this time and this space that you allowed and shared with me to have to be with the sacred today. So thank you and blessings.